A number of European countries continue to see Russia as a major threat, and they want to continue support for Ukraine. But the US-Israel war against Iran seems to have benefited Russia in a number of ways. So was that war a strategic blunder? I speak to Belgium's Defense Minister, Theo Francken, one-on-one. Minister, what's currently the biggest threat to Europe?
Biggest threat is Russia, China and other adversaries coming together and trying to destabilize us on a hybrid way or on a direct way, like in Ukraine. That is the biggest threat to Europe, without any doubt. And then second, of course, terrorism, that keeps on being something that we really need to monitor. And Turkey is doing this every single day, and we're very happy to have you.
Given the change in the geopolitical situation, what's your assessment of the latest threat level from Russia in terms of has its capabilities been degraded to an extent where it cannot continue, or does it have the capacity to continue and carry on with this war?
But you can never underestimate the Russian armed forces. The Russian people is a people who are used to suffer. So yes, of course, they have a lot of capabilities, but they thought they would take Ukraine in 2 weeks and go to Kiev in a couple of days. That was not the case, and that's not the case. And Ukrainian fighters are the best of the world, together with technology, AI, innovation, unmanned vehicles, unmanned flying objects. That's mind-blowing. And you, Turkey, always supported Ukraine. You gave the first drones to the Ukrainian army. So it is extremely problematic for Russia in Ukraine, and that gives a lot of tension and a lot of pressure on the leadership in Moscow. And that's of course that's a good thing. I think that the sovereignty of Ukraine, you cannot just take that country, and it was an extreme miscalculation of Moscow, Mr. Putin, to just try to take that country, because Ukrainians are very proud, very strong soldiers, and they just push back. They fight every day for their life, for their identity, for their country, for their soil, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Picking on that point, I've spent quite a bit of time in Ukraine, talked to the public, spent a lot of time on the front lines with the soldiers. A very common sentiment you get from the Ukrainian soldiers and the general public is that they were militarily on a course to victory, but the change in Washington and the change in approach, especially in terms of the provision of weapons systems and so forth, that has really affected the process. And some of them have even said that they see this as a sort of treason, as being betrayed by the US in particular. First of all, do you think the Ukrainians had the capacity to secure a military victory?
But I think that Crimea has been occupied by Russia since more than 10 years. So that's not so easy to take that back. It's totally militarized. So it would be difficult, I think, on a military way to regain all that territory. I think that's not easy. It will be very, very difficult. So I cannot really give my assessment on that, but saying, hey, when America gives weapons to Ukraine, then we will push all Russians out of Crimea and the Donbass. I don't think that it is that simple. I think that's more complex. And I think that Americans still support Ukraine. So the idea that America is doing nothing for Ukraine, that is not correct.
You're someone who's been working very closely on security matters, not just within the European Union, but also with NATO. Would you have hoped for things to have unfolded differently after the change in administration in Washington, as far as Ukraine is concerned?
Yeah, for me, I'm supportive for Ukraine 100%. So having the United States support Ukraine is a major priority. They're not out totally. They're still helping Ukraine, believe me, but there have been discussions, absolutely, and they changed policy on weapon delivery. Now with the Pearl package, we are paying, European countries are paying for that PAC-3 missiles from Patriot and Raytheon. So yes, there has been political change, but okay, the presidential election was very clear. Mr. Trump won the election without any doubt. So yeah, he can change the policy. That's up to the American people and American leadership to make that decision. That is in every country like this. This is how democracy works. So who am I to judge? I think that with the presidency, it is difficult within NATO. We have issues, but we're stepping up. Belgium is a country that is stepping up 60% increase of defense spending. Within NATO alliance, we're number one. We increased with 60%, 60. So that's, I think, a good thing. We're one of the founding fathers of NATO, but we were one of the worst pupils in NATO class. And it was a shame. It was shameful. It was a disgrace. And now finally, Belgium is back on track, and we can go to class every day without being ashamed. So that's a good thing.
Speaking of Russian threat, it seems that the US-Israel war against Iran has benefited Russia in a number of ways in terms of, for example, its energy exports, in terms of the relaxation of sanctions and so forth. So would you say that, looking at it in hindsight, was the move to start a war with Iran a strategic blunder?
You're all asking questions for Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Defense, so...
Security dimension. You're one of the architects of the security in that area.
Yeah. It is a very difficult subject, so I'm here with an economic mission with our Queen, with 500 entrepreneurs, trying to do business with Turkey, between Belgium and the beautiful country of Turkey, talking about Iran, and probably the next question is about Israel and Gaza. Please ask Maxime Prévost. He's here. You can ask him.
No, I'm focused.
I'm not going to give a comment on that.
No,
it's
I'm actually
focused
on the security, and obviously there is a security dimension. I think we really cannot ignore that. What we are finding, for example, in Western European countries, a sort of growing trend of some ethno-nationalist parties and also Eurosceptic parties that seem to be gaining ground. As the Minister of Defense, of course, you're looking at the security dimension. Do you see that as a potential challenge to the security dynamics in Europe?
Depends.
With the weakening of European Union?
Yes, of course, but we need to address something like migration. You know, I was Minister of Migration 10 years ago, whilst the European asylum crisis. Wir schaffen das. Mrs. Merkel, you remember that? It was Turkey that you have millions of Syrian refugees in your country. And some of the Syrian refugees, they wanted to go to Europe, to Germany, to Belgium. We had hundreds of thousands of refugees. It was a big crisis. We need to address illegal migration. We have so much legal migration, and I don't have problems with legal migration when it's legal with rules, like all the Turkish people coming in to work in the coal mines in Belgium in the 60s, in the 70s, and 80s. That is legal migration. It's very, very good. No problem. Absolutely. Thank you for helping us with our economy. But all the illegal migration, it is a disaster. And when we don't address the problem with illegal migration, then we will have extreme right parties having 20, 30, 40%, like in my country. They have 25% in this. Our party is the biggest, but they're the second. You see what happens in Great Britain.
Speaking of migration management and the role Turkey has played to help Europe, would you say that greater integration of Turkey, and perhaps Turkey becoming a full member of the European Union, is going to be a positive contribution?
European Union not working together very closely with Turkey, it would be very stupid. It would not be a wise thing to do. The smart thing to do is to work together. We need Turkey. Turkey also needs the European Union. We're neighbors for so many years. We're NATO allies. And we're living in a very dangerous, difficult, complex, unstable world. And I'm not jealous at your neighbors. I really prefer my neighbors. They're really calm people, all my neighbors. So you're living in a very difficult context. So we need you. You have a lot of capabilities. You have a very strong industry. Of course, inflation keeps on being a problem, but it's going down. So hopefully you can fix this. But of course, we need to work together. And does that mean that at the end Turkey will be a full member of the European Union? I don't know. Sorry. Is that your agenda? Do you want that? Is that the agenda of the European Union? I don't know.
Mr. Minister, as someone who's responsible for security, and obviously you have external challenges, you have internal challenges, there's a growing trend, and President Erdogan has talked about this quite a lot, about a rise and normalization of Islamophobia, the sort of political rhetoric coming from some countries and so forth, and there's absolutely no action, no consequences. As the Minister of Defense, when you look at it from a security point of view, does it concern you that perhaps this could lead to a point where it destabilizes societies?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you see the elections in the UK, we have elections in France, of course, but then again, talk about illegal migration, fix the model, try to be severe on integration. You have to be severe on integration, sorry. And when people are hardworking, whatever their color of their skin, their religion, wherever place of the world they come from, when they come to Belgium, we are a very diverse and multicultural country. When they come to work, and of course they want to build a family, a nice life, having good education for the children, having a good future, have some promotion at work, and earning some good revenue to go on holiday. It is beautiful. And then we try the same. We have the same goals. We have the same objectives. We share the same dreams. So, but we need to also tackle the things that are not going well. And some things also in my country are not going well. Sorry.
Finally, you've been talking about the Turkish defense industry. What sort of defense collaboration are we talking about when it comes to Turkey and Belgium? What's the scope? What could the two countries achieve together?
So we signed contracts in Istanbul. We are signing contracts in Ankara tonight. So there's really concrete steps forwards. Already Belgian companies are integrated in production of Turkish systems. Also, Turkish system and industry is also in our capabilities. So we're working together, but we need to expand this. And that's why we have this economic mission for contacts and contracts. So today there's a Turkish-Belgian Defense Industry Day, first time in history. And we have this for networking, having good contacts. And tonight we sign contracts because, of course, you can talk, but you have to finalize. So we have these contracts also. So I hope that in Ankara with the NATO summit, we can even have more industry coming and even more deals that we can close. So yes, this is the way forward. And Belgium will be one of the best partners for Turkey. We're small, but you can count on us.
Minister, thank you for joining us on TRT World.
Thank you for your difficult questions.